Hey guys,
ROMEOs,
Hey,
how are we today?
welcome.
everybody looks very good, very sharp, very nice.
There we
An
go.
honor to be at this table with you guys, as always.
I'm a lumberjack and
what's
I'm
going on?
okay.
I want to make a statement. Retirement.
What is the
The
statement?
statement is, the.
I'm lazy.
No, the statement
Well,
is the hip, manly look.
It's the accessory.
Young 64-year-old.
It's the accessory of a baby socialist. Beard.
No, I didn't bring my
Time to
beret.
shave, Naran.
No, the beret. That's I don't have the beret, so
beard.
I'm not in my socialist costume. Yet.
Not at
So
all.
welcome everyone.
Yeah, very relevant. Start to the
Yes.
conversation.
So for
eh?
those of you who care about Aki
my political leanings.
and his facial hair,
facial hair.
maybe we'll encourage him to do his own solo podcast.
There you go.
But for those who are here to join the Romeos,
There you go.
thanks for doing so. Glad to have you on board.
Welcome everyone.
Yeah, honored.
And Naran, reminder for our viewers and listeners.
We would greatly appreciate it if you would like and subscribe. So go ahead and do it. Get off your asses.
There you go.
He just can't help himself.
Yeah, I can't. That's okay.
Yeah,
It's a signature.
freaking do it.
No.
Okay. So what are we talking about
Guys,
today?
let's talk about why violence seems to be so prevalent in society.
Get off your asses and subscribe, motherfuckers. Sorry.
Mental health.
Okay,
is one.
I gotta take the jacket off now.
One indicator.
Okay, thank you for illustrating the point.
Yeah.
But you guys good with that?
Let's go for it.
All right.
All right.
Why is violence?
Yeah.
So prevalent in society.
Video games.
Oh,
Oh,
expand on that.
Well, video games have a reset button. And they think in real life there's a reset button. So,
You think it's that simple?
yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Wow.
No,
okay.
obviously not.
You gotta
but-
love it.
But I think, it just, it desensitizes people
That is
from reality.
Totally.
I mean, I was never a video game player, but I look at these things like, what's that game that you kill all the whores and prostitutes and Grand Theft Auto?
Grand Theft
Grand
Auto.
Theft
yeah.
Auto.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
For somebody who doesn't play, you sure know a lot about the game.
Well, I read a lot.
Yeah. Well,
And he fantasizes a lot.
It's not. It's a very much. It's a cultural. It's not
Yeah.
just video games. Right across our culture, it's become very routine. What you watch. There's very little editing right now. Everything is very much violence in your
Well-
face, very graphic. That's the standard.
Well, might I throw
And
out?
and mental health.
Might I-
Mental health. I
Okay,
mean,
yes.
there's a lot of
What's the
emotional.
tie-in?
Oh, well, there's a lot of people, with a lot of emotional baggage, and they are at their wits' end, and they're prone to act out, and they are prone to have a very short fuse.
So there's a societal angle to this. Okay, so
and leadership.
and how about wokeness or anti-wokeness? Does that have anything to do with it?
well,
The
yeah.
machoism or the machoization of society because people are fed up of the.
There's a backlash.
because there's a lot of.
That's a stretch.
I don't
Even
think so.
For me.
Listen, some of the comments that we've gotten about being feminine and all of these things. It's like there's a machoization of society to an extent that
Our video is good, right? I mean, the quality of our video is good. I mean, if people are
the toxic
taking us for women, I just wanted to make that point. Our video quality is
Hang
good.
on, let me get these babies out there.
Just checking.
They're picking up on the mascara of the nerd.
What? I'm not part of Lincoln Park. Okay, so there's the toxic masculinity that's also part of this thing.
Celebrated.
As well. That is celebrated, which again, to me, there's also a bit of a backlash as part of that toxic masculinity, and that backlash was the Justin Trudeau over feminization of how can I say it? A bit of a pendulum swinging a little bit too much towards the feminism part where guys said, okay, enough's enough. We gotta get back to the macho. It's a man's world kind of thing. I think that also had a bit to it.
So are you saying guys reacting
Some
to
guys.
other guys raising the flag for feminism? Is that it?
Some guys, yeah. Some guys
Okay.
saying enough's enough. Too much of this, feminist bullshit. We're men and so on. I think there's a percentage of people or some people who have reacted that way.
Yeah, we're in a rage culture. That's the way I would put it.
So it's interesting because you haven't said it, other than Nuran, I haven't heard either one of you say it explicitly, but do you think that this issue of violence being so prevalent in society is predominantly a male issue?
Well,
No, I don't think so.
it depends how you define violence. I think, women are good at, getting upset and whatever, but taking out guns and knives, no.
Oh, the younger girls now are a lot more.
Still exceptions. It's mostly boys, mostly guys.
There's a lot of So when you're driving these days, and you see women drivers and the aggressiveness. Thank you.
The aggressivity.
Which was, you guys get it.
Yeah,
how aggressive they are.
Yeah.
It boggles my mind.
But that's to my point.
But that's also to my point that I find women are acting more like men in a lot of ways, including some of the aggressiveness that they're showing. Yeah. And that's also coming out in, I go to a boxing gym, and there's a lot of women in there now taking, jiu-jitsu classes and boxing and kickboxing classes. So there's a lot more.
But is that, so it's interesting because are there more women taking either martial arts or self-defense courses because they perceive that there's a greater risk to their safety in society? Or are they doing it as a way to work up or work out their aggression?
It might be the machoization of women.
Yeah, I'm thinking, which one do you think it is?
I think it's more. I think it's more. From a societal perspective, I think there was always a percentage of women who wanted to be able to defend themselves. I think that hasn't changed. I think what's changed, the addition of the next layer, if you will, and the addition of more people wanting to do that, to me, is the machoization of women and the violence in society.
Yeah, because I think until told or proven otherwise, there continues to be an important difference in the psychology of men and women.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of men, and I think back even to our generation as teenagers, a lot of people who enrolled in either boxing or martial arts did so because they wanted to be macho. They wanted to be able to not so much defend themselves as show how proficient they were in a martial art. Whereas in my view, my perception is that most women who have taken those types of classes have done so to be better able to protect themselves.
Okay, so traditionally, I agree with you. I think there's a new layer of people that are wanting to go out, because now you see in MMA, for example, in UFC, you see women who are fighting. And by the way, when women first started fighting in MMA and UFC, they were terrible. Female boxers at the time, they'd be like, wailing away, like had no idea. Now, I wouldn't go into a ring with a 130-pound woman who will kick the shit out of me, because their proficiency, the way they fight, it's unbelievable. So I think that's also encouraged women to say, hey, look at these pro fighters. They're
fair.
Amazing.
That's fair. I think we should be careful, though, in terms of drawing conclusions from relatively small sample sizes.
Fair. However, I think there is, like I said, there's the base layer of females who always want to protect themselves and defend themselves against whatever can happen to them. But like I said, I think there's another layer that's added on top.
But, high level violence to mostly men. You got to agree.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think one of the elements is that one of the virtues that has completely disappeared is patience.
Oh, totally.
Nobody has,
Totally.
even at McDonald's, people get upset because they're not getting their Big Mac, within 2 minutes.
Well, this is what I refer to as a rage culture.
Exactly.
Everybody's always
exactly.
a hair trigger away from flying into a rage.
Exactly. So
add guns, and you have a great society.
And look around us. Look at the state of the world. Look at the level of violence in the world, in the Middle East, in Ukraine.
Yeah, we become desensitized.
We're being flooded with that every day.
You're raising a point which gives me an opportunity to lead into a view that differs from what you guys are discussing. So there's a part of me that believes that there isn't so much an increase in the level of violence in society as there is a reversion back to the norm. In other words, if we go back and look at things from a historical perspective, you talk about wars, whether it's in the Middle East, Eastern Europe, and
Vietnam.
So on. Generally speaking, that's how the world has operated. The unprecedented period of history, I'm going to argue, is from post-World War II to, say, 10, 15 years ago, when we did have some wars, but they tended to be more regional, smaller scale. They weren't on the scale of what we saw from a historical perspective or what we're currently seeing today. So I don't think that the behaviors we're seeing today are so different. I don't think human nature has changed that much. I do get your point, and I agree with your point that the role of women in society has changed, and with that has come some certain character traits or attributes or behaviors that society may have previously frowned upon on the part of women, which has become much more acceptable in certain regions of the world, Western civilization, right? Not necessarily elsewhere.
Definitely.
And even that may change, right? We see where recently with a new president preparing to take office in the U.S., there's a lot of discussion about women's role in the military, and these are examples of where, I think we're actually reverting back to the norm.
But you know
how
what?
Things work.
Just one important difference, though.
But hang on, I just want to say, what about what he said about rage culture? Because I agree with him that you're saying we're reverting back to mean in terms of how we were and how we've been anthropologically throughout 1,000 years or whatever. We're back to the way we are. We're just savage human beings. That's one thing. But I think there's this hair trigger stuff that's happening that I'm not certain if humans were like that 100, 200 years ago, but there's like zero patience. And I think that's something new in terms of people, because people aren't putting up with like anything. Like you said, my Big Mac isn't ready. I'm going to start freaking out and screaming at people.
Road rage.
Yeah, so I think that may speak to the level of stress that many people in society are feeling today, more than a changing of the times. So I'm more of the belief that immigration, rising poverty levels have more to do with some of the violence that we see in Western civilization. And with that, a higher level of stress for many people. So a higher level of stress, less patience, less tolerance. I think
so you
those
said
are
immigration
the
is a foundation.
Well, I think immigration because, while I'm a big believer in immigration, I think that the way immigration has been managed or mismanaged by Western Europe and North American countries over the course of
So you agree with the shithole
years.
country concept?
Listen, there are reasons why certain countries are impoverished or have the profile they have.
Are shitholes.
What I think happens is that there are less than desirable elements of society that find their way through the system and end up in countries that like to think themselves as countries of laws.
Right.
And that element of society generally comes here with nothing.
And they have nothing to lose.
They see that there are opportunities, and the fastest way for them to capitalize on those opportunities is to get involved in crime. And it may start with more petty crimes, but quickly that can rise to the level of serious crimes.
So I think we have to be very careful with that, and I disagree with this. And this is one of the drivers of this.
This is a surprise.
It's really demonizing like immigrants or asylum seekers. It's a lot more complex than that. I haven't seen, and nobody has produced any like reliable data to suggest that people who have crossed into the country illegally or who are immigrants are prone to be more criminal than the norm.
I'm going to ask you two questions.
Yeah.
And I'd like an honest response as I know
always,
you're capable of.
I will not disappoint you.
So is it true that many of the immigrants who have entered Western European and North American countries are poor?
Like most immigrants, they start off as being poor. Yes.
Let's not complicate
Yes.
Yes. Question number 2. Is it true that where there's high incidence of poverty, there tends to be more violence and more crime?
Yeah, but keep in mind, we're also talking about a bigger pool of people.
Yeah, but
you're looking to justify your belief system instead of looking at things for what they are. Yes, it's a larger pool of people, but crime is on the rise. And I'm saying there's a direct positive correlation between criminality, level of criminality, and level of poverty. If there's more poverty, there will be more crime.
If there's
and the type of immigration we've subjected ourselves to has contributed to a higher level of poverty
And ghettoization.
which in turn leads to a higher level of crime.
So let me ask you.
That's all I'm saying.
Okay, so let me ask you a question as well. I mean, can you believe that there are neighborhoods where there is a high level of poverty and a very low crime rate?
Sure, that can be.
Okay. So how does that come about?
Depends on the country they came from.
You're asking me about a particular neighborhood.
Yeah.
I'm not saying a particular neighborhood.
I'm looking at things from a broader perspective. All I'm suggesting, and if you have data that suggests otherwise, bring it to the table.
Okay.
That the higher the incidence of poverty in society, the higher the level of crime.
Higher level of crime, yes, theoretical.
So
that should be that should be backed up by data, which we don't have.
All he's saying, and I agree with, is that countries should be more careful in how they deal with immigration.
Okay.
Okay. So there are different ways to deal with immigration. Immigration is different from asylum seekers. Put the two aside.
Absolutely.
So, we went into an immigration discussion here when we were talking violence, but they do tie in to one another. If a country is intelligent about the way they choose the people who are now immigrating into their country, then they can start, Canada has a point system. Everyone has a different way of doing things.
Right.
If you do that effectively, and if you have policies that could assimilate people into your country effectively, then that would go a long way to easing the poverty, the ghettoization, and all the rest of that. When you don't have proper policy, when you don't have proper public policy around bringing immigrants into your country and wrapping your arms around them and helping them to be the best citizens they can be, that's when you get poverty, that's when you get ghettoization.
But all the policies of the world, people don't want to assimilate. They won't. We have a lot of those.
And that's an issue.
Yeah.
That is an issue.
And Canada is different from the U.S. in terms of melting pot versus mosaic.
Yeah,
correct.
Here
we
it's
think about mosaic.
Correct.
Oh, it's nice. Keep your identity. Keep your whatever. But if the identity to begin with isn't an identity that matches with the fabric of the civilization that we choose to have collectively as Canadians or Americans, then what are you doing? Why are you bringing these people in?
Okay, but
we've lost that battle.
okay, so we're going sideways.
Well, I don't know if we're going sideways. I think we need to be careful because while I think your arguments are perfectly legitimate, I don't think that it necessarily ties in to a higher level of violence in society.
It can, because to your point.
I'm not saying it can't.
But I'm supporting your point.
Yes, I'm not saying it can't, but I'm in the same way as I reacted to your earlier comments, I recognize that people have been desensitized to a whole number of things, including violence. When from an early age, we're putting young children in front of gaming consoles or computers and letting them engage in games that are extremely violent, it can only desensitize the mind to violence and aggression. There's no other outcome.
Can I bring another element? Has violence been overreported also?
Yes, it's become
Because,
sensationalist.
Yeah. I don't know.
That's a media thing.
But hasn't that always been true?
I'm not saying it's the whole reason.
We've never had so many platforms.
Yeah, the platforms, it's because it gets repeated over and over, the same. Like, for example, what happened in Montreal, on all the platforms all over the world.
Everything gets magnified.
Yeah.
1,000 times.
So,
I
I think this issue of sensationalization is real. There's no denying that.
Yeah.
By the same token, I don't think that we should look at that situation and try and convince ourselves that we don't have a societal problem with violence and aggression.
Totally agree.
It's not just that it's being reported through numerous more platforms, more frequently, repeatedly. Yeah, that's an issue. But that doesn't explain the whole story.
Right. So listen. Let's go back to the discussion we're having around poverty. Poverty is a problematic thing in society, and violence is part of it. The health consequences, that's another part of it. So it's a multi-layered sociological problem.
So the answer is socialism.
The answer is what we did. I mean, if I look at around the table, like we're not Pat, but I think the three of us, we're the first generation, or we're the kids of immigrants. the wave of immigration that in the 1950s.
I'm the kid of it.
But you're born here. But your parents were.
No,
I'm not sure how many.
I'm born here.
Your parents
My
were
parents
also
are not born here.
right. So your parents were okay. So you are.
I'm a first generation.
Right. So
I'm an immigrant.
So when we in our time,
but not a migrant.
What I'm going to say is that my recollection is of when we were young and we were growing up in this country and being the kids of immigrants, being immigrant kids. Did we deal with serious crime? Were we impeded? Were we in danger as young people growing up in this country as immigrants?
I'll tell you why.
I'll tell you before you go. I know what you're going to say, but this is what I'm going to say. It's because we also had certain resources there. To your point about being a mosaic, we had it through our education system, through our community services, through the activities that we had as young people. We had the opportunity to be comfortable becoming Canadian, and I'm sure in the States becoming American or whatever country you want to talk about. We had the resources and support to be able to integrate into this society, continue to be faithful to our maternal culture, but also be full participating members of this majority society. It happened because
where did it break down?
It broke down because all those resources have been diminished.
There were no resources.
Of course, there were resources. Think about your school. Think about the after-school activities and the programs. Think of your community centers.
I never had an activity after school.
Well, I did.
No, I'll tell you what changed. The type of immigrant. Our parents came here, to work and to take it slowly to get to the point they want to do. Now they want a fast track to the $2 million home, the Mercedes. So they do all sorts of things to get there instead of, trying to do everything.
Okay, so
I think so.
That's a generalization.
Exactly.
But however, there are some that
there are some, of course. There are in all classes of society.
Maybe there are more of those than there were back in our day.
Exactly.
Is his point.
Right across society.
Way more.
I would say.
Okay, well, that contributes to what we're talking about, which is the violence in society. And to me, we kind of watered it down, or kind of went really wide, really quickly. I think, honestly, rage culture, the internet, the prevalence of news that gets into an echo chamber and louder, the amount of outrage that everyone puts into everything, mass protests on look at what's happening in the Middle East right now. Terrible, tragic. You can take either side you want, but why in the world are people in North America and Europe having protests and killing each other in peaceful countries that have no reason to hurt one another, having violent interactions instead of peaceful protests? You want to protest something? Protest. It's called peaceful protest.
But isn't it a reflection of human nature?
Well, it's a reflection of the worst, the bottom tier of humanity, who can't understand how to express themselves without violence. There are certain humans who are more animal than human. And it's just the way they are. It's the way their brain is. And it comes back to mental health as well for one tier of those people. And there are people who just can't help but be violent.
But
that's how they express themselves.
Inherently.
Yeah.
Again, if we look at history, empire building, dynasties, individuals, typically male, who need to assert their power and authority over others. Could be your immediate family, it could be a larger network, it could be a country, it could be a region of the world. Hasn't this always existed?
Yeah, I'm not saying it hasn't. I'm just saying it's been amplified recently because of social media and all the stressors that you talked about in society. People aren't as well off as they used to be. They're desensitized to the violence.
So you're saying it's being manifested to a greater degree.
Much more, yeah. It's in there.
But you agree that it's always been there.
Definitely. So it's in there. It's in there as a base root. One of the things that humanity has in them. There's a certain percentage that over amplifies that, or has always, as to your point. I'm just saying that because of all the things that we all talked about, whether it be poverty, whether it be desensitization, whether it be rage culture, whether it be echo chambers of social media, all of those things have just put more and more emphasis on violence, on macho society, on women who are now, wanting to be more male, versions of themselves.
And add to that, your important point is how the economic situation has changed. Whereas, the example that I was giving you guys, right? I'm talking about the 60s when we were younger, and there were more opportunities. There's optimism about economic opportunities and being able to have a career and go to the school of your choice and do well financially, right? That was the pattern. And that I think went a long way to being a bulwark, because people felt they had a stake in this game and they were going to do well and they had an opportunity to do well. People don't feel that anymore.
Do you think in part that's explained by the growth in sense of entitlement?
Yes.
There are more people in society who have a
Totally.
sense of entitlement than they did a generation.
But more fundamentally, in North America, we were the powerhouse, the economic powerhouse of the world. There's opportunities galore for us.
And there still is.
People here.
There still are.
Well, now arguably the world has changed. As we have seen, the plight of a lot of Americans who lost their jobs and the Rust Belts because business went overseas, production went overseas.
Unemployment's at like 3.4% in the U.S.
But people, it's still we saw that in the American election where people still feel that they're left out. There's no more opportunity for them,
I think
and that
that's an important
aggravates.
distinction. It's not because someone is employed that they have the sentiment that they have the financial means to live life comfortably.
Right.
Fair enough.
No, but there was an optimism. I think that's changed. I don't think that optimism, that certainty is not there, and that adds to the stress that people have, and that contributes to the hair trigger attitude. We're not at our best anymore.
So what can we do about it? We all
I
recognize.
think Dominic wants to say something.
Well, we haven't spoken about guns, availability of guns, so easily. I mean, that contributes.
But where is that true? Where in the world is that true?
Well, I mean, we know where it's true. I mean, it's, south of us, obviously.
In the United States.
In the United States.
But the
Brossard?
issue. But the issue.
Brossard, South Shore of Montreal.
But the issue we're discussing
Yeah.
is not limited to the United States.
No, it's not. But
Naren gave some earlier examples in Western European countries where there's a greater incidence of violence and aggression.
But not gun violence. Gun violence, the United States, a class of its own.
It doesn't matter. We're talking about violence generally speaking.
I know, but you throw like massive, availability of guns into the equation, and you make
Well, it just
the problem
doesn't
even
matter.
more
It becomes
intense. Of course
more,
it matters.
It becomes more lethal.
yeah.
To
lethal.
Dominic's point, it'll be you have the opportunity to have much more carnage.
Yeah.
I don't know. You have a Yahoo who's toting a gun. You have a Yahoo who's brandishing a
knife,
a machete,
exactly,
in London,
exactly,
in a crowded area,
and still killing
I don't know.
people.
To me, it's the same thing. It's a different weapon. It's the same thing.
Yeah, but
the behavior is the same.
Yeah.
You want to inflict harm on others,
or
That's
people
violence.
with their cars running into crowds.
Yes, I know, but it's
Right.
a question of scale. The guy with the AK-47 with the
A guy with a car can kill as many
Yes,
people as a guy
yes,
with
I
an
know.
AK-47.
We're not here to talk about the U.S. or gun culture. We're talking about
But that is
violence in society from a broader perspective.
and the fact that in one instance in the American example, the easy availability of guns. In other societies, the more readily availability of weapons also just fires up the situation.
Okay, so that's fine, but that's the discussion is about violence in general and what can we do about it. So my question back to everyone is, okay, we all recognize that violence is ramping up, whether it's gun violence, machete violence, car running into crowds violence,
school shootings,
nurses poisoning little babies in hospitals violence. There's all sorts of crap that's going on around the world.
That's always been.
Fine. But the prevalence is increasing. The rate seems to be increasing. So what do we think can be done about it?
Well, we have to change the culture. Right now, we're in a culture that celebrates violence.
So when you say we,
in terms of society,
and which culture do you think will prevail? Because in different regions of the world, do you think your idea of culture and your values are necessarily representative of global values?
I don't know. I don't have an easy answer, but I'd say in terms of just
let's
the
discuss.
prevalence of violence, the prevalence of violence. Let's start off with media.
Some cultures will tell you, I have an easy way to deter violence.
I'll cut off an arm.
If you steal, I'll cut off your hand.
And it doesn't work. It doesn't change
But,
the level of violence.
There's not much violence in Saudi Arabia. You can leave your wallet on your car or walk away.
I don't see too many people immigrating to Saudi Arabia.
Let's not lose sight of the fact that it's a small minority that are violent. It's not.
Yeah.
So, what can you do? You can't do much because your targets are so small. What are you going to do? I mean, you're hoping that parents are monitoring these kids, these teenagers, and
Well, but
I mean,
yeah,
I don't think
everything from role models to schools to community resources.
So hang on.
It's
So
the whole scale.
I don't think as a group. So what you're saying is we can't do anything about it. So let's not.
Well, it's not. It's
No, I
very hard.
disagree. I disagree. It's not. You're not going to eliminate it because I think at the core.
I'm not saying eliminate it. What can we do to
I'm saying at the
address
core,
it?
human nature is what it is,
Yeah.
Okay.
and will always be the same.
And that's your point. And
So-
I get that.
I think one of the major contributors is poverty. So to the extent that we can reduce the level of poverty in society,
Okay.
I believe that will have a positive impact on curtailing some of the acts of violence and aggressiveness that we're seeing in Western society.
Okay.
I believe that's one. I think that continuing to issue, warnings. So whether it's labels that are placed on certain products in terms of, kids of a certain age should probably not be given access to certain type of call it entertainment or engagement because it's likely to desensitize them to criminal or aggressive acts before their brain has fully formed and they're capable of making better judgments. So there are things that can be done in order to reduce what we currently perceive to be a trend of increasing levels of aggression. And I think that we should look at our legal system, our judicial system, and ensure that and our immigration system, and make sure that we're bringing reforms where they're going to benefit society as a whole.
Okay, guys. So something that I noticed in my kids and their generations growing up is that the kids or the younger kids these days are much more in tune with bullying and violence in school and have stepped that back. And the question I have to everyone is this increase in violence happening with people that are our age and in their 40s and 30s and 20s versus kids that are growing up? And I'll throw out there that I think the kids that have grown up, my kids who are in their 20s, the boys who are in their 20s and even my daughter, maybe my daughter was still in a bullying state because she had some issues growing up, but the boys and the kids that are growing up in school today seem to have a better time of going through school. And the crazy bullying that we went through our high school years, everyone was calling everyone faggot and whatever, and it was just insult over insult and aggression versus on top of aggression during high school in our years. I think that's calmed down quite a bit, and I think that may help over time lessen the impulse of violence as the kids these days are going through the education system and coming out the other end as adults.
Well, I could argue the other side of the coin. So what you recount as some of the verbal abuse and acts of aggression that we were subjected to as teenagers, yet our generation wasn't viewed as particularly violent or aggressive.
But we are now.
No.
Our generation, I think our generation's now where you see a lot of the outrage.
I would say, if anything,
I see a lot of
people today have, and young people, and my kids are a similar age to yours, some of the stories that they would come back and tell us what was happening in school and say, okay, it's not markedly different from what happened in our day, except that the kids had much thinner skin. So they felt ostracized, and some of them reacted negatively.
In our day or now? You're talking about now?
Our kids' generation
Yes.
started developing mental health issues.
Well,
And some of those kids, particularly the boys, many turned violent.
okay.
You
Well,
know? Look at
I've been seeing
and
the opposite.
everything gets labeled. Look at incels as an example.
Yeah.
The level of aggression that these people have, right, towards society. And
Well, you would too if you couldn't get off. Pull a whack, boys.
Very
Come on.
scientific. Thank you, Nuran. very scientific analysis.
Get that shit out of your system.
As wanker in chief, I'd like to defer to you on this one. But,
Hey, both my hands are up here now. I'm holding this, guys. I'm holding this.
no, I just think, again, this is where
So you don't believe
I just think people's level of tolerance, people's threshold for...
But their echo chambers just.
So you're saying we're raising a bunch of pansies now?
Pretty much.
Super thin-skinned. They get bullied once and they fold.
I'm just suggesting that society has evolved over the course of a generation or so.
So the feminization of society.
In a way that is also contributing to greater acts of aggression and violence.
Yeah, and I would also, and I would say that's not the way I would look at it.
It's interesting because there's so many inputs into that.
You could look at it as a situation where we're raising a lot of thin-skinned people, or you look at it as a situation where we're raising a lot of more people who are aware, who are conciliators, and who are able to work better with people and build better harmony.
More liberals
and progressives. That's the conclusion.
But we have to look at the results objectively.
As soon as they make money, then they all become conservative.
So there are there is some data from the States, from the FBI, which I looked at, which indicate like violent crime in fact has dropped. Like year over year, it's down 10%. And I'm not sure what
in general, violent crime seems to have been coming down, and now
in Canada, however, there's other data that shows in Canada it's up.
It's up
significantly.
Yeah,
must be all the immigrants.
So the data,
it is.
Well,
it is to a certain extent. Yeah.
You see, you're putting the value. You're putting in the numbers.
Sorry, not the immigrants, the migrants, the ones who come in illegally.
No, but I want to see
some people who have come here. Who have come here legally.
Yeah.
Looking for a better life and find themselves mired in poverty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So poverty is absolutely a trigger for this.
Yeah, you know what?
But I still believe
we were poor. I didn't kill anybody.
Well,
that we know of.
Right. So I still believe in terms of the human nature to this, that when we're talking about immigrants, we're talking about asylum seekers, they are interested in the same things that we are. They would like to build a better life for themselves, have success, take care of their kids. And I think that's still, at the heart of what people are looking to do. They don't come here to disrupt this. They don't go to the United States, to overthrow this system. They go there because the system, they're drawn to it for the opportunity and the justice that it provides. That is a fact.
Aki.
Yeah.
So
in a lot of cases,
that is a fact. It is also a fact that most human beings will take the path of least resistance.
Exactly, like water.
So if they see an opportunity to capitalize on some of the opportunities that you're describing through means that aren't necessarily always legal or that involve acts of aggression or violence, many will not hesitate to do so.
So to follow your logic, the majority of people are predisposed to criminal activity.
I would say that the majority of human beings, predominantly men or males, are wired in a way that it doesn't take much to trigger acts of aggressiveness or violence.
Yes.
That's what I mean.
Including in you.
But how many? Yes, of course.
Don't underestimate.
But don't underestimate. Sorry,
I'll give you an example. So again, I'm not going to name names, but recently I was outside my home and I noticed a neighbor who has young children. And the father was trying to get one of his young kids' attention in order for him to behave a certain way. And the kid just was totally ignoring his dad. And the dad ran after him, grabbed him by the arm, and yanked him towards him, and then was speaking in a loud voice and bringing him into the home. And I'm just observing this. And there's somebody who's standing by my side who says...
They're shocked.
They're not shocked. They're saying, if I had done that, I would have gotten all that plus a smack across the side of the head.
Exactly.
I was never smacked.
And I was observing.
And look at you now.
And yeah.
Another one over the plate.
You think that drop on the head was accidental? And I'm watching it thinking, how would I react in that situation? And I would say I probably would have acted in a fashion similar to the person I was observing.
I think we could safely say we all would.
But I grew up in a household where parents didn't slap their kids around.
Same with me.
Same here.
You know,
My brother, my brother was beaten.
I've uttered. Slap the shit out of
you
him.
got it talking to, you got it whatever.
Yeah.
Right? And I know I had friends who got smacked. And I'm looking
all
at the
do.
situation, and the person standing beside me is saying, I would have gotten all that plus a smack across the head. And I think the person would also tell you, and I grew up just fine.
Yeah. But there's also...
Right? But through our actions, we deliver important messages. We think that what we say is what gets all the attention. But I would argue that what we do gets a whole lot more attention.
But most of us, we don't give into our impulses when it comes to violence, thankfully. Because otherwise we wouldn't be able
That's the
to have
majority.
civilization.
It's the majority.
The majority?
But
yeah,
the key
overwhelming.
being, if that's a natural impulse,
that's a natural
then we
impulse.
agree that human beings are wired a certain way.
They are wired a certain way.
That's why I go
But
to
the-
a gym and beat the shit out
And the
of
learned
Out of a bag.
behavior,
or the woman boxer that you talked about.
the learned behavior
Almost broke my
is
nose.
not to give in to
Oh,
your
so you tried
impulse.
to... Never mind. I want to hear about this. You actually went into the ring with this very high caliber women boxer?
No, this was a long time
Okay.
ago. But I couldn't hit a woman, so I couldn't box back. So
Even the
I was
boxing
basically
ring.
a punching
Hey,
bag.
the boxing ring. We're feminists.
I know. I couldn't.
There are equal. I mean,
couldn't- can't
everything
hit
is
a-
equal.
I couldn't hit a girl. I just couldn't.
Oh my God.
There you go.
Okay.
I couldn't.
Well, then you're not a true feminist.
I couldn't.
What are
I
you saying,
couldn't-
Jackie?
Conundrum.
What are you encouraging? What
I
kind of
can't-
behavior are you encouraging?
I can't get myself to hit a woman. I just can't, even in a boxing ring.
Okay,
so
so-
I was a punching bag for her, and she caught me with one nice shot to the nose. That was the closest I ever come to someone breaking my nose. Was being punched by a little blonde girl. She was a young kid. I wasn't going to hit her. I couldn't get myself to hit her.
Okay.
What are you, Caitlyn Jenner?
So what I did was I never went into a boxing ring with a woman again.
You're a misogynist. See?
because I wouldn't hit a
Because you
little
went
girl.
in a boxing
I would have killed her.
situation.
She was like 110 pounds.
You're a misogynist. She could hold her own.
No,
He's just made himself more eligible material for married women out there who are interested in a guy in his mid to late 50s, you know, who's very independently sufficient,
in shape.
has a high opinion of himself, who's self-confident.
Yeah, great personal hygiene.
I'm all good, guys. I'm
right,
I'm doing
right,
great. I'm
right.
fine, thank you.
Right.
No need.
But I guess, and to continue that conversation, those impulse controls, it was more the standard than it is now. I mean, now, you know, the standard is
Hair trigger.
It's couched in, you know, outrage and being an outcast, being poorly treated by society. Therefore, you know, I'm entitled.
Hair trigger.
I'm going to take back my place in society, and you know, F you. Who are you, you know, to tell me that I'm wrong about, you know, my thinking?
So I
think that's what's changed.
I don't see it that way. I think there are actually more parents today who are not disciplining their kids through physical means.
Oh, so you think that was
No, I'm
instrumental?
not. No, I don't see physical violence towards a child as a good thing. Absolutely not. All I'm saying is I think there are fewer parents today in Western civilization who will take a hand or an object to their kids as a form of punishment.
as it should be. But
That I agree with. So
What's that resulting in, though? To your to
I'm
further
saying-
your point.
So what is the result of that?
Yeah.
So I don't think that the behavior is being learned
At home.
At
Okay,
home.
Got you. Okay, interesting. Yeah.
So previously, I think kids who grew up in households where they were beaten about the head and so
Dominic's
on,
point.
they grew up thinking that's normal, that's acceptable,
Yeah.
and I'm going to raise my kids the same way, and it continues, and it's an endless cycle.
And if dad was beating mom,
Hey, you know what? Put her back in her place.
Yeah.
Right. So, but if that was the mentality.
I know.
That was the
It's just-
mentality.
that was the standard.
It's just
I didn't grow up in that kind of
No.
household.
No.
I had friends who did.
No, that's right.
Right. And
yeah.
I couldn't spend very much time in those homes because it was
Yeah. Toxic.
totally.
Totally.
Yeah.
Right.
So Dominic had a point, right? This desensitization of violence, all of the stuff we talked about. I think all of that is contributing to it, and not what you said, which and not the beating up of kids at home.
No, but I think in part what's happening is you have kids who are so entitled and who are unfortunately placed in situations where they may be the target of abuse. It could be verbal abuse, it could be physical abuse. And over time, it reaches a point where they're so overwhelmed by this abuse and they don't know how to respond to it. But it gets so overwhelming that some of them end up acting in a very violent fashion.
But this goes back
when they ultimately...
This goes back to my point about resources and support for those. I mean, we see those, very disadvantaged families who are, and the kids in those families who are dealing, with these very unhealthy home environments. And the parents are, it's beyond their means because they have issues as well. So where is the support for this? Where is the intervention to minimize this? And save those
There's no
kids.
more money left for any of that stuff. That's the problem. That's part of the problem, and that's part of the poverty cycle and all of that. So we're not going to fix that.
Yeah. So I think another element we didn't really touch on specifically, which I see as a major contributing factor, is what I perceive to be diminished level of respect for others in society.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's
So
the
there's
polarization.
far less respect and consideration for others.
Well, that's the flip side of the entitlement argument. I'm entitled. My needs are greater than yours. My needs count. My needs above everybody else's.
Narcissistic behavior.
Yeah, and it's pretty mainstream in some political circles as well, and the message is
In
very
all
clear.
political
But you hear from school teachers, for instance, how kids today
Yeah,
have no respect for authority.
No.
Yeah.
True.
And that's
And some of these teachers will tell you, I tried to
so they
involve-
should have been beaten at home.
I tried to involve the parents. Well, it goes
Right.
beyond that. I tried to involve the parents to make them aware of their kids' behavior. And the parents' response was
To yell at me.
Not my problem.
Or to yell at me to say, well, how can you treat my child this way?
Now, I haven't heard that as much as not my problem. You deal with
The
it.
teachers get emails galore, because
yeah.
parents think that their kids are angels and they're the best, and
Right. And I'm not excusing the behavior of some law enforcement individuals, but I can understand where, if you're trying to get individuals who are disrespecting the law to toe the line and they're flipping you off, I can see how that can anger you. Now, those people need to learn how to control their impulses as well, but I can understand how that might trigger you.
Impulse issues with a badge is a lot worse than impulse issues without a badge.
Can we also
be,
point to the demise of the extended family in the sense of when you had grandparents and you had a family, an extended family, there was more a supportive net for the young person.
Well, that's a social safety net for your family as well. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But now both parents are working because economically they have to. So now
or choose to.
Well,
or now they have like six sets of grandparents.
Right, and it wasn't even extended family. It was also like there was neighborhoods and people in your community, on your street. The kind of the families would help each other.
The pedophiles would do the baby
love of
the
God.
babysitting.
Can you keep it high level here a little bit? Can you raise it?
It's hard for them.
Oh my God! These wankers.
My hands are here.
No, but so there was more of in society. We just had people more inclined to take an interest and support each other, and we would have on our street. I don't know about you guys, right?
Because the families
the
were
stereotypical, the neighbors. It takes a village to raise a kid, and you had people that were really interested in the youngsters, and if things were there was a problem.
The pedophiles.
But Aki,
All right, go ahead, finish your argument. Sorry, Dominic. Let me finish this pedophile.
To be fair, you keep lobbing it over the plate for
All right,
him.
I did. So go ahead, hit it out of the park about pedophiles.
Because what you're saying, Aki, is because we had traditional families.
Yeah.
Today, they're divorced, so you get six pairs of grandparents. Or
That's a
sets.
factor.
That's like 4 parents.
I'm saying that's one factor.
They stay 2 weeks or 1 week with the mother, 1 week with the father. It's like nothing is consistent.
Yeah, I agree that it's more complicated.
Yeah.
But let's not kid ourselves. It's not because the family unit stayed together in the past that it was a happy family unit.
Of course.
There was a lot of problematic family.
No, but there was more dialogue. There was more,
Not necessarily.
So let's all go back to 1950.
Not necessarily.
Let's all go back to the 1950s.
Because it also it's initial role models.
and
Who are the
we'll be
role
fine.
models for young people? And and having said all this about young people, let's be clear about this. I don't think the highest level of crime is among young people.
Well,
It often starts.
What's young?
It often starts.
18 to
Oh, no, it
to
starts
30.
well before then. You have 8, 10,
Yeah.
12-year-olds,
Yeah.
right, who are
But
being
the-
recruited.
But
And
the violent crimes, it's 18 to, I would say, 40, most of it.
Okay, guys. So
No, and part of it is, look, I mean, we've always had organized crime, but
Yeah.
that's behind the
Yeah,
scenes.
that's-
Right? The kids on the street are hired as I need you to go do this and I need you to go do that, and here's your payoff. Say, oh, okay.
and here's your initiation into our gang and all of that.
Yeah.
But that, again, listen, I think we can all agree globally that there's a rise or there's a prevalence of hair trigger human beings that are out there for a bunch of reasons.
And an outrage culture that they live in.
And there doesn't seem to be walking this back due to your point of human nature being what it is and it being part of us in terms of what makes humans humans. I don't see this going away anytime soon. I just don't. I think it's going to continue this way, and unless there's a new generation or multiple new generations coming out who have a way of dealing with this level of stress, poverty, and all the rest of it, we're all just going to need to have to buy our own guns.
Yeah. So no, wrong conclusion. But anyway,
Just a bit wrong.
Yeah,
tad.
human nature hasn't changed and won't change.
In Glock, I trust.
I think the best we can hope for and plan for is more effective management of some of the triggers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think if you close your borders and manage immigration accordingly, you're going to solve a lot of issues, including violence.
Well, and place much more emphasis on dealing with poverty, the growing level
Because
of
don't
poverty in
forget,
society.
there's a lot of these migrants that come from countries where that mentality is every day.
Sure.
So
But that's why they come here. They come here because they turn their backs to
But
that.
the behavior doesn't change.
But they want a different way.
They don't.
They want a different
they want
way.
a better way.
yeah, exactly.
a better way, and most of all, peaceful, to be able to live.
No,
Aki,
no,
Of course.
no. It's not your belief
no.
system.
It's not about my belief system.
It
It's
is.
about what
You're
human nature.
projecting.
People that go through all the risks of coming to a new society. They do it.
Some
why?
people.
They do
Aki,
it. And you talk to
don't
the
go
people.
broad brush. Yes, you're right for a certain percentage,
But like
there's
any
another
other-
percentage that they're
like
right
any
about.
other segment.
So just acknowledge
Like,
that.
All I'm saying is it's like any
ain't
other
100%.
segment. You can shut your borders now in an hour and then completely seal off the country, and you think that's going to make a dent
It
in
will
your crime?
3 years from now.
Exactly. Not today.
I don't think
of
so.
course not.
Apparently, you have to deport first.
Okay. That's
Deportation is part of the solution.
We'll see how that goes in the next 6 months.
yeah.
All right, guys. Final thoughts.
Final thoughts. It's a tough subject, guys. I mean, society is going in a certain direction. We can't stop anything on a dime. To Dominic's point, there are and to your point about poverty, there are things that can be done with immigration, poverty, social policies, etc., that can help. But it's going to take time, and it's going to take an effort over multiple years.
Yeah. Look, like Pat said, there's a lot of triggers,
Yeah.
but I'm sure just a minority, but they cause a lot of problems. But we need to control certain things.
Look, the only way that society can function properly is if everybody steps up and assumes their responsibilities, from parents to schools to governments. If we have an outbreak of peace for a change in the world, instead of outbreaks of war, that will change this culture.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Enjoyed the conversation, guys.
Yes.
Yeah, good one.
Hope you did as well. Hope our audience did as well. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys.
Thank you.